I'm Michelle, and we're going to talk about how I and you can use mindfulness, compassion, and connection to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. When stress becomes all consuming. Hi, I'm Michelle, and this is a tale from the trenches of parenting burnout and how I and you can use mindfulness, meditation, and self compassion to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Before I get into today's tale, I just want to say I'm sorry I've been away and that it's been a while before since I recorded last. And the reason I've been away is because I've spent the last several weeks interviewing parents and therapists who work with parents and parenting coaches about our ability as parents to stay regulated when we most need to, right? When our kids are dysregulated, when our kids are having a hard time, when our kids are having big emotions, and what keeps us from being able to stay regulated, and what parents need to help them stay regulated. And I've gotten such great feedback and learned so much. And I'm excited to start to can add that to the things that I share with you all, this podcast and my blog and newsletter, and of course, in my course, Yelling to Connecting. And for those of you who don't already know, this is the last week to sign up. The welcome call is Tuesday, May 27th. So on the 26th, the doors will close to register. And this is the beta version. So just to share with you what that means, it's the first version of the course. And before I finalize the structure, I want to test it with real people, with parents, with those of us who need this. And I am looking to fill two more spots. And the beta means that you'll get 50% off future price. You'll also get a lifetime access to the program and all the updates that I make along the way. And I'll ask for feedback one or two times during the course, a short, easy survey. And if you think you might be a good fit, I'd love for you to email me. And if you email me um, podcast, you can just the word podcast, you will get a 30-minute one-to-one coaching call with me in addition to everything else. Um, and you can find more on the website at compassionateheartmindfullife.com slash yelling dash to dash connecting or compassionateheartmindfullife.com and then go to work with me. And you'll see all the information about signing up there. And don't forget, if you sign up this week, email me the word podcast, and then you'll get that 30-minute one-to-one coaching call. So, on to today's topic, when stress becomes all consuming. So, as usual, I choose topics that I am either currently facing and or have struggled with intensely in the past. And because of this new project, Yelling to Connecting, and because of life and another project that I was doing last week, I have had more on my plate than usual. And my stress level has been extra high. And also, it's the end of the school year where I live. So, my kids are transitioning from elementary to middle school. So, there is a lot happening at once. And in hindsight, I would map it out differently, but that's one of those things that I'll have to use for future. But anyhow, life has been more stressful than usual. So, the way that I now think about how to cope with stress and compared to how I used to, what would how I would in the past I would just be sort of like, I don't know, gritting my teeth, bearing through it, doing the best I could, but just like, I don't know, feeling like you're hanging on to the back of a roller coaster. You're not even in a seat. You're hanging on to the back of a roller coaster and you're just like being jerked and flung around, and you're just desperately trying to hang on while you get through this terrible ride, which is a pretty awful feeling, right? Like we know we can literally hang on. We're not going to die. We're not gonna, but it's awful. It's just not fun and it's awful. And then of course what many of us do and what I definitely did was beat myself up about how I was handling it and how stressed I was. And like, so not only was there the stress of the situation, but then piling on top how I was coping with it. And of course, never feeling like I was measuring up. So I now think of, okay, one, just how do I always try to keep myself resourced in general, but especially if stress is going up, that means I'm going to need to up the game on how I resource myself. And for me, resourcing myself falls into like four pillars. I think of it as like a four-legged stool. And if any of the legs are broken or not there, then the stool is going to fall over, right? So these might not be your four pillars, but these are my four pillars. And so the first one is mindfulness and meditation. The second one is connection. The third one is moving my body. And the fourth is self compassion. These pillars do not go in any certain order. They're all equally important for me at this point. So the first one, mindfulness and meditation, just to be honest, ideally, my goal would be to meditate for 30 minutes a day. Yeah, that's not happening right now. And that hasn't been happening for some time. The best that I can do, which is quite helpful is I put in my first off, I only meditate. I'm doing air quotes, also because it's in bed, the lights are out. It's right before I go to sleep. I put in my headphones and I listen to a guided meditation. I used to sit up. Lately, I haven't been even sitting up. I'm lying down. I don't fall asleep to meditations because I don't know why. It just takes me more to fall asleep than that. So I'm not one of those people that as soon as I close my eyes, I fall asleep. So I can listen to the whole meditation and try to meditate while I'm laying down. And if you can't, then, I love what they say, which is if you fall asleep when you're meditating, you probably needed sleep more than you needed to meditate. So that's a win. Um, but anyhow, my favorite app is called Happier. Yes, Happier. And I just pop in my earbuds and I listen to whatever I can manage that night. It might be 5 minute guided meditation to a 15-minute guided meditation. It's one of those things where, as the stress goes up, probably the more I meditated, the better it would be. But of course, the less I usually meditate. But if I can keep it as part of my daily routine, then that feels like a huge win because it doesn't just, because I've had the habit of meditating for a long time, the mindfulness stays with me throughout the day. And I remember when I'm riding my bike to pick up the kids to look up at the sky and notice the clouds and notice the breeze on my skin and notice things that otherwise I would that would pass me by, or to notice like my stress levels really high, or oh yep, I'm getting more edgy with the kids because my stress level's high, or uh, all those kind of things of just being mindful of my stress level, how I'm doing, and being able to be present with whatever's happening right in front of me, even though stress usually wants to take me away in my head, right? That's what stress, we usually start thinking about what we haven't done or what we need to do. And the more we're in our head, the less, the less we're in the present moment. So, mindfulness is basically meditation off the cushion, right? It's like being able to be present in my everyday life. And also, another part of this pillar for me is listening to talks by Pema Chodron. She's an American Buddhist nun, and she just, one, she has a great sense of humor, so I feel like it's lighthearted, but it's talking about, relationships and how do I stay present in life even when life is hard. Essentially, that's all of what these talks are about. And they're talks that she's given at retreats. So I like to pretend that I'm on the meditation retreat and I'm sitting in the big hall and I'm listening to Pema Chodron and I'm taking in this information. And it's a really helpful way to start my day. It's really helpful to avoid all the other thoughts of where my mind would go. Um, so I find it quite helpful. Um, and the next one, number two, is connection. So, what I mean by connection is I now have lots of different connection points in my life, whereas back in the days of burnout, there was almost no connection. So, connection for me means participating in my parenting group every other week. Connection for me means um, talking to my listening partner who we only talk about parenting and support each other in our parenting once a week. Um, Connection means having a weekly date with my partner so that we can connect and like remind each other that we love each other and that we're here for each other, right? Because otherwise it's ships in the night. Who knows when's the last time we had a conversation? Another connection point is spending time with friends, just talking about nothing, just hanging out. And of course, as with everybody, when stress level goes up and there's like so much on the calendar, it gets harder to have those times. So I just try to do the best that I can, but know that it's important for me. And I want to keep, like, it might even be texting a friend and saying, when can we meet up for coffee? And even if it's a month out, that's something that I can look forward to. That's something that I can, get on the calendar. So, number three is moving my body. And this comes from, I mean, of course, we all know like moving our body helps with stress, but I feel like it has a lot of layers of negative shoulds and have tos, and there's like guilt layered in there, and sometimes body image stuff. So moving my body, it sounds easy enough, right? But you might even hear it and just be like, oh, at that, which is totally normal, because it can, yeah, there's just a lot surrounding it. And I really changed the way that I looked at moving my body after I read Emily Nagoski's book Burnout, because in her book, she talks about this is the most effective way to complete the stress response cycle. And of course, we know like stress builds up and stays in our body unless we can help our body move through the stress. So I try not to be rigid about any kind of routine, running, lifting weights, anything that yoga that I like to do. Because if I get rigid about it, that goes into perfectionism and kind of takes me off of the rails of resourcing and into another less helpful place. So moving my body, but with flexibility. So it might just be walking my dog. And if that's what I have time for and I get to be outside, I count that as a huge win. Or taking a walk with my daughter, or it could be just picking the kids up from school because I have the ability to ride my bike to pick them up. Um, it could be when I have time. My favorites are running. Lately, I've been lifting weights because I'm going through perimenopause, and now evidently, you're supposed to lift weights when you go through perimenopause and menopause. So that's a new part of my routine, which I love, but it's hard to make time for it. Well, okay, I don't love it 100%, but I like how I feel afterwards. Um, but lately, I've only been able to do it once a week. So just as much as moving my body is important, not beating myself up because I'm not like reaching my like my ideal week would look like. Um, Again, that takes me into the perfectionisms and shoulds and have tos and into a negative place. So any time that I can move my body is a win, and I can remind myself I'm offloading stress, I'm moving through the stress, I'm helping my body complete the stress response cycle. And another little like smaller ways of offloading stress by moving my body is um, kind I wish I could show you, but you basically like shake your upper torso. It's kind of like shaking your shoulders. So you keep your hips still, but you shake your shoulders. And imagine like after you've probably seen an animal do it, right? Like they almost get hit by a car and they stand up and they shake and then they run off. And that is animals' ways of completing the stress response cycle, right? So we can actually do that for ourselves. So when I notice when I feel tension and tightness and anxiety in my body, I will literally like shake my upper torso as a way of trying to offload that stress, move through it. Um, and I'm adding that here because there's lots of different ways. Another way is to tighten all your muscles, hold your breath maybe for, I don't know, a few seconds, and then take a big exhale, a big sigh, and let all of the muscle tension go. That's another way of moving your body and helping your body to complete the stress response cycle. So it could be something like, the traditional kind of exercising, which I try to like not even use that word because it has negative connotations, but hey, if you like it, awesome, use that word. Um, or it could be something that you didn't even think of. Maybe you do it, but you're like, oh, that's completing the stress response cycle. Yes, it is. Oh, that's helping me offload stress. Yes, it is. And some of these that are maybe like less well known, but you could also use them when you don't have time to do a whole 20-minute to an hour long workout. So, number three, the third pillar is self compassion. Oh, self-compassion is what I found to dig myself out of the shame hole. And it's been now a companion, a friend with me, hopefully a lifelong companion through life, because self-compassion helps us change our relationship with ourselves. And my favorite self compassion practice is the RAIN practice that was introduced to me by Tara Brach. And RAIN stands for I put a new twist on the I. So recognize, allow, interconnected, and need. So recognize, what are the emotions that I'm feeling right now? Stressed, overwhelmed, afraid, angry, sad, whatever it is. Um, and we know that naming our emotions actually helps us have a little bit of distance from the um, re- from the response to the emotion, right? When we're in the emotion, you could think of it like a river. Like when you're in the emotion and caught up by it and you don't know you're in it, you're just like floating down a river and there's turbulent tides and it's just like tossing you all around. But as soon as you say, I'm overwhelmed, it's like part of you can see yourself in the river and see yourself being tossed around and see the experience that you're in. And it helps you, even just that little bit of distance helps your body have a little bit more space. It gives you a little bit more awareness to think about, okay, what do I need? Is there anything I could do different? So it actually begins to help us unwind and from the stress and the thoughts that get come along with the stress, right? So that's the benefit of naming it. So R is recognize, A is allow. So oftentimes we, like I mentioned earlier, we beat ourselves up or judge ourselves for how we're handling the stress. So we think to ourselves, oh, why am I so overwhelmed? Everybody else can handle this. Why can't I? So and so is looks great, is handling life perfectly. Why can't I handle life like them? Or what's wrong with me that I can't be more calm? What's wrong with me that I can't handle this better? Why do I have to on and on and on and on, right? So allow means allowing myself to feel whatever emotion I'm feeling. It's not right or wrong. It just is. I like to use Jeff Warren's phrase, welcome to the party. Welcome to the party, anger. Welcome to the party, stress. Welcome to the party, overwhelm. And I like to take it to another level with my imagination. So I imagine a campfire because that's like a calming scene for me. And I imagine all these different parts of me around the campfire, and they're all welcome there. And so then, frustration or stress comes up, and I picture like an over dramatized version of myself that's super stressed out and got big eyes and just like darting around and really stressed out. And then another part of me calmly like puts the blanket around that stressed part and gives them a cup of tea or a beer or whatever they want to drink and says, welcome to the party. And then to the sad or fear or whatever it is. And this is like a gentle reminder that emotions are just emotions. They're not good or bad. Some of them are definitely more fun and less fun to experience than others, but they're all welcome. And actually, that helps us move through emotions quicker rather than trying to push them away or avoid them. And generally, when we try to avoid them, we do a bunch of stuff that we don't necessarily love, right? Like drinking, too much screen, shopping, and we can still do. I still can slip into all those things anyways, but it just helps us have a little bit more chance to not slip into ways that we don't want to handle things. And it helps us step out of judgment. So rain, recognize it, the R, A is allow, I is interconnected. So interconnected means I'm actually not alone. Often the times the story we tell ourselves is I am so terrible at handling stress. I'm the only one because we compare our insides to other people's outsides. And 9 times out of 10, people are probably looking at you thinking that you've got everything together, you handle everything so well, you're so calm, cool, and collected, and they're comparing their insides to your outsides, right? So we look around and we're like, no one else seems to be stressed out. No one else seems to be having a hard time. Even if people tell us, sometimes we can dismiss it and think, well, they're not having as hard a time as I am. Because we don't really get into it, right? We just kind of stay on the surface of like, yeah, it's really stressful. It's a busy time of year. But we don't really get into deep conversations about how deeply the stress might be impacting us. So, interconnected is a conscious reminder of I am actually not alone. There are probably other moms, other dads, other parents who are as stressed as I am right now, who are as overwhelmed, who maybe are fearful about transitions or anxious about the summer and what is that going to look like in our family and all these kind of things. And maybe other parents who are struggling with sleep or who are getting more edgy. And I find it helpful. One, you can use me. You can say to yourself, well, I don't know about anybody else, but Michelle is stressed too. So I can be that one other person that you're like, well, I know I'm not alone because Michelle at least is feeling this way. But I like to think, there's probably someone in my neighborhood that is as stressed as I am right now. And I just can't see it, right? So interconnected is truly reminding ourselves that we're not alone. Our reactions, our feelings about stuff are not abnormal. They're quite normal. They're and it's part of the human experience. So it's common humanity is the way Kristen Neff talks about us, reminding ourselves that we're part of the common humanity. We're not alone. So we've got R, A, I, and then N is need, nurture. So what do I need? This is a big question. What do I need? How can I nurture myself when I am feeling stressed? And that, my friends, there's a million different answers for that. It could be a bath. It could be a shower. It could be a walk. It could be a conversation with a friend on the phone. It could be vegging out on your favorite TV show. It could be asking your partner to do the dishes, even though it's your night. It could be eating a bowl of cereal instead of making a meal because you just can't. Um, there could be there's an endless things that could go in the need? And it's a hard question when we're really stressed and overwhelmed and someone asks, "What do you need?" It's it's a very difficult question to answer when we are overwhelmed. So, one way to kind of get a list of needs would be to think about it when we're not super stressed and overwhelmed. What are things that kind of brighten my day? What are things that help me feel a little bit less stressed, help me feel a little bit less alone? What are things that I commonly or have done in the past that I've enjoyed? And then, if you have a list of those things, when you're stressed and overwhelmed and your brain is triggered and you can't think straight, you can go to your list and look at, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. I mean, I remember when I was really burned out and being triggered, regularly, I couldn't remember to take a walk. It seems crazy now, but I think we can't underestimate how impactful it is when our brain is triggered into fight or flight. That it is We have very significant tunnel vision, and we cannot remember the smallest things like, oh yeah, when I take a walk, I feel better. And I had to put up a sign that would be remind me to take a walk when I was triggered and flooded. Especially, my kids are old enough now that I can take a walk and I don't have to bring them with me. It's great if my partner's here because then I can just leave and not have to worry about it. You can also ask your partner to say, "Hey, I got this. You can go take a walk if you want, or go take a drive, or whatever it is." So I would, and your walk might be to a bench down the sidewalk that you just sit and stare up at the sky, like whatever it is. Sometimes just being in nature is very helpful. But that's the in for need. So I'm going to go back through these really quickly. My four pillars for maintaining and bolstering my resourcing when as stress like ticks up. One of the pillars was mindfulness and meditation. The second pillar was connection. The third pillar is moving your body. The fourth pillar is self compassion. So I would love for you to think about, what would your pillars be? Is there any that you would add to that? Is there any that don't work for you? And then under each one, is there a way that you could, if you don't already, incorporate that into your life, if that sounds like something that would be helpful to you? And how could you use that when stress is ticking up? Thank you so much for listening. And before you go, I have a free gift for you. It's the guided audio pause and regroup. It is a free guided audio pause for when you're about to lose it with your kids, or if you've just lost it and you catch yourself and you need a moment to regroup. And I actually provide an audio for you to pop them in your ear and I walk you through taking a pause and regrouping so that you can rejoin your family or your kids when you're ready. And this story is brought to you by Yelling to Connecting. Remember, this is the last week to sign up for the course, and I have two spots that I'd like to fill. And if you think that you might be um, a good fit and you're not sure, you want to know more, I'm happy to chat with you about it. You can email me questions. Um, it's essentially the program that I needed when I wanted nothing more than to parent with respectfully. I wanted to parent with, I want to, it's not past tense, I want to parent respectfully with kindness. Um, but I want to be conscious about how I'm parenting. I want to gentle parent, but there's one tricky bit. I have to be my nervous system has to be regulated in order to do that. And what I found was it's really hard to regulate your nervous system sometimes, especially if you're like me and you hadn't really experienced long periods of having like a calm, regulated nervous system. And it was more of like your life was a roller coaster. So I I had to figure out how do I strengthen, how do I extend my bandwidth, so that I'm not triggered as easily. I had to figure out once I am triggered, how do I calm myself down? I had to figure out how to step out of shame because at first, figured out how to, keep my mouth shut to stop from yelling more. But then I was totally still flooded and with emotion. And then I would feel ashamed of that. So I had to figure out how to climb out of the shame spiral. And in doing all of this work, I came up with some great, you know, tools like for taking in all this information. And I came up with some great tools to figure out how to do all these things. And the best part was not only now, one, it's it's not that I don't get angry or triggered. It just takes way more. I've really widened my window of tolerance, which is you know, just it's a huge sigh of relief when you're not constantly, that's what it felt like before, constantly being triggered, constantly overwhelmed, constantly flooded with emotions. That in and of itself is overwhelming. Then also knowing like when I do get triggered and I do get angry, being able to move through that quicker and easier so that I don't yell at my kids, or if I do, I can catch myself. I can quickly and easily repair. It doesn't ruin the whole day. And of course, not slipping into that shame, which, if I didn't yell, I still was kind of like not as available if I was in the shame spiral and kind of, keeping my distance from my kids, right? They don't want that. I don't want that. So not only did those things get better, but because I had to do all this work, have better mental health and more stability in my mental health than I honestly had ever had before. So it is a huge relief. And I really wanted to share what I learned through this awful process. Awful and at the end, great. And I wanted to help other parents that are going through it because I know I wasn't, I'm not the only parent that's ever cried in a bathroom or a closet or slipped into shame or felt terrible about yelling and really wants nothing more than to parent differently, but can't figure out how, like reading all the great books, having great apps, knowing like, yes, this is how I want to show up, and then not being able to because of being triggered and flooded. So that's why this project is so close to my heart. And I would love to share it with you and be with you on your journey if you feel like you might be the right fit. So don't forget to you can sign up through compassionateheartmindfullife.com under the Work With Me tab. You can learn more about the dates and times. It's going to start on May 27th. And if you email me the word podcast after you sign up, then I will also include a 30-minute one-to-one coaching session with you at some point during the course. You can do it towards the beginning, middle, and whatever works for you, but at some point during the course. So now we're at the end of the show. And just a reminder, this content is intended for educational purposes only and should not be used as a replacement for private psychotherapy services. Compassionate Heart Mindful Life does not provide psychotherapy services in any capacity. I am a therapist, but I'm not your therapist, and this is not therapy and should not be a substitute for mental health treatment. If you need mental health treatment, please find a qualified professional in your area. Thanks again for listening. Bye bye.